It's November 1757. You're standing on a hill overlooking one of the largest armies Europe has ever assembled. Nearly 65,000 soldiers, French infantry, Imperial cavalry, dozens of artillery pieces. Together they outnumber the Prussian army by almost 2 to 1. Every experienced commander would reach the same conclusion. Avoid the battle, wait for reinforcements, fight another day. Frederick the Great does the exact opposite. He marches straight toward them. By sunset, the larger army will no longer exist as a fighting force, not because it suffered catastrophic losses, not because the Prussians had better weapons, but because Frederick understood something that almost every commander of his time overlooked. A larger army isn't automatically a stronger army, not unless it can fight as one, and at Rossbach, he made sure it never could. To understand why that mattered, you first have to understand the war Frederick was fighting. By 1757, almost every major power in Europe wanted Prussia defeated. Austria wanted to recover Silesia. France wanted to weaken a rapidly rising rival. The Holy Roman Empire joined the coalition. Russia was preparing its own offensive from the east. For the first time in Prussian history, the kingdom faced enemies on almost every border. This wasn't a war Frederick could win by trading territory or by replacing lost soldiers. Prussia simply wasn't large enough. Every battle had to accomplish more than just pushing the enemy back. It had to preserve the army that was still left. Because while Austria could recruit another army and France could finance another campaign, Frederick couldn't. That changed the way he thought about war. Victory was no longer enough. He needed victories that cost almost nothing, and that made Rossbach one of the most dangerous gambles of his entire career. When Frederick finally found the Allied army, the numbers looked even worse than expected. Nearly 65,000 men stood between him and central Germany. His own force numbered barely 36,000. On paper, the outcome seemed obvious. History usually favors larger armies. More infantry means longer battle lines. More cavalry means stronger flanks. More artillery means greater firepower. Every advantage appeared to belong to the coalition. But Frederick wasn't looking at numbers. He was looking at time, because numbers only matter if they can be used together, and that was the coalition's real problem. An army that large couldn't react instantly. Orders had to travel farther. Commanders had to coordinate with one another. Entire formations needed time just to understand where they were supposed to go. The bigger the army became, the slower it could think. Most generals saw 65,000 soldiers. Frederick saw thousands of men who would never reach the battlefield at the same moment. And if he could strike before they did, their greatest advantage would become their greatest weakness. The question was no longer whether the Allied army was larger. It clearly was. The real question was, could Frederick finish the battle before that larger army had the chance to fight as one? Frederick spent hours studying the Allied position. At first glance, it looked exactly like what every commander feared. A massive army stretched across the countryside. Long lines of infantry, cavalry protecting both flanks, artillery covering the center. Everything suggested that attacking would be suicide. But Frederick wasn't asking whether the army looked strong. He was asking whether it actually was. Those weren't the same question. The Allied commanders had assembled an enormous force, but they hadn't assembled a single army. They had assembled several armies, trying to fight as one. French officers answered to French commanders. Imperial troops followed different chains of command. Every important decision required coordination, and coordination takes time. Frederick realized something most generals never considered. An army doesn't become dangerous because of how many soldiers it has. It becomes dangerous when all of those soldiers can act together. Until that happened, its numbers existed only on paper. If one section came under attack, nearby units could respond. The rest couldn't. Not immediately. Orders had to be written. Messengers had to ride. Commanders had to decide whether the attack was real or merely a diversion. Those few minutes didn't seem important. To Frederick, they were the entire battle, because if he could win before the coalition finished making decisions, he would never have to fight 65,000 men at all. Most commanders would have tried to match the enemy's line. If the coalition deployed across several kilometers, they would do the same. That seemed logical. It was also exactly what the coalition expected. Frederick chose something completely different. Instead of spreading his army, he compressed it. Almost all of his combat power would strike a single point on the enemy's flank. For a short time, the Prussians wouldn't be outnumbered. They would actually outnumber the soldiers directly in front of them. The challenge wasn't creating that advantage. The challenge was keeping the coalition from realizing it. The battlefield offered the perfect opportunity. A series of low hills blocked much of the Allied view. As the Prussian army marched behind them, its true direction disappeared from sight. From a distance, It looked as though Frederick was moving away from the battlefield. Some Allied officers believed he was retreating. Others thought he was searching for a stronger defensive position. Almost nobody guessed what he was actually doing, and every minute they spent guessing, Frederick moved thousands of soldiers into position. He wasn't hiding his army. That would have been impossible. He was hiding his intention. There is an important difference. Armies don't react to movement. They react to what they believe that movement means. By the time the coalition understood where the real attack was coming, the opportunity to stop it would already be gone. Frederick wasn't trying to confuse 65,000 soldiers. He only needed to confuse the handful of commanders responsible for moving them, because once those commanders fell behind the battle, the rest of the army would follow. And that was exactly what Frederick was counting on. On the morning of November 5th, the Prussian army disappeared behind the hills. From the Allied headquarters, everything looked routine. Columns of blue-coated soldiers marched across the landscape. Nothing suggested an immediate attack. If anything, it looked as though Frederick was avoiding battle. The coalition commanders reached the same conclusion. If the Prussians were retreating, there was no reason to hurry. Some units continued marching, others stopped to reorganize. The army was moving, but not together. That was exactly what Frederick had hoped for. Then everything changed. As the Prussian columns emerged from behind the hills, they weren't moving away. They were already forming for attack. The Allied commanders suddenly realized the danger. Orders were sent across the battlefield. Infantry was told to change direction. Cavalry was ordered forward. Artillery searched for new targets. But large armies don't turn like a single man. They turn one unit at a time, and every unit reacted differently. Some received their orders immediately. Others didn't receive them for several minutes. A few never received them at all. Frederick had created the one thing every commander fears most: not enemy fire, uncertainty. Within minutes, Prussian artillery opened the battle. Its guns weren't trying to destroy the entire coalition. They only had one job: keep the first enemy units pinned in place. That gave the Prussian infantry enough time to close the distance. The attack struck only a small section of the Allied line. For those soldiers, it felt as though the entire Prussian army had appeared out of nowhere. Because in effect, it had, before nearby formations could reinforce them. Another surprise arrived. For most of the morning, General Friedrich Wilhelm von Seydlitz had kept the Prussian cavalry hidden behind the hills, waiting. He had no intention of charging first. He wanted to charge last, only after the Allied infantry had committed itself, only after officers were focused on the front, only after changing direction had become almost impossible. Then, more than 3,000 Prussian cavalrymen swept over the ridge. The charge lasted only a few minutes, but it shattered the coalition's cavalry almost instantly. As riders fled back through their own infantry, confusion spread faster than any messenger could ride. Now commanders faced two battles at once, one against the Prussians, the other against the growing disorder inside their own army, and Frederick knew which one would win. Looking back, it's easy to assume Rossbach was simply a brilliant cavalry charge. It wasn't. The cavalry only delivered the final blow. The battle had been decided much earlier, the moment the coalition lost the ability to act together. That's what Frederick had been attacking all along. Not the soldiers, the command system. Every delayed order created another delay. Every unit that turned in the wrong direction blocked another behind it. Every commander trying to understand the situation made it harder for the next commander to understand it as well. The larger the army became, the faster that confusion spread. Within less than 2 hours, the coalition was retreating. Not because every unit had been defeated. Many had barely fought at all. They retreated because no one could tell where the real front line was anymore. And an army that no longer knows where the battle is has already lost it. The casualties told the same story. The coalition lost thousands of men. The Prussians lost only a fraction of that number. For military observers across Europe, the results seemed almost impossible. How could an army outnumbered nearly 2-1 win so quickly? The answer wasn't hidden in superior weapons or extraordinary luck. It was hidden in a simple idea Frederick understood before the battle even began. A larger army is only stronger if it can fight as one. At Rossbach, it never had the chance. Rossbach lasted less than 2 hours, but its consequences lasted for generations. Before the battle, many European leaders believed Prussia's survival was only a matter of time. It was surrounded, outnumbered, and fighting against the strongest coalition on the continent. After Rossbach, that assumption disappeared. Frederick had done more than win a battle. He had changed the way Europe thought about war. Military academies would study Rossbach for decades, not because Frederick invented a revolutionary weapon, and not because his soldiers fought harder than everyone else. They studied it because he understood something that is still true today. Size creates strength, but it also creates complexity. The larger an organization becomes, the more difficult it is to make every part move at the same moment. Most commanders looked at 65,000 soldiers and saw an unstoppable army. Frederick looked at the very same army and saw thousands of men who could only become dangerous if they acted together. He never allowed that to happen. In the end, Rossbach wasn't the story of a smaller army defeating a larger one. It was the story of one commander realizing that victory doesn't always belong to the side with the greatest numbers. Sometimes it belongs to the side that understands its enemy better than the enemy understands itself.